The other day I made a video talking about why I believe King K. Rool is going to be making a return in Donkey Kong Bananza. There's lots of little secrets and hints and tidbits, but on top of that, we've got so much more information that the community actually have been digging through and watching demos and going through the Nintendo treehouse frame by frame to find out some crazy callbacks and maybe even more evidence as to what could be going on in this world, and some of this is quite shocking. In my video, I discussed how maybe this game could be taking place on Crocodile Isle and in the Lost World, and this whole region looks very familiar to that Lost World region as well. You have the little lake, you even have the river coming in from the south, you have lots of mountains and trees surrounding the area. It definitely looks like the Lost World from Donkey Kong Country 2. Maybe Ingot Isle is technically Crocodile Isle, or maybe it's just like part of the Lost World or something. It's now just covered in all this mud and stone and girders where they're actually harvesting these Banandium gems from. I also talked about these new enemies called crocoids, which are these gold skeletal alligators that seem to be trapped in all these fossils and stones, and it seems like maybe they could be the skeletal remains of past Kremlings. Because why else would there be so many skeletal crocs in this game if it didn't have something to do with the Kremlings in King K. Rool? So with those two things, it sounded pretty likely. Daggone it, it gets so much deeper, it's actually insane. So this first part comes from a YouTuber who literally dove so deep into this and found some exciting new info. So this is just one person of several that's found lots of new things. And this one comes from Uncle Al Plus on YouTube. Please, I linked the video in the description down below. Go watch his entire video because, oh my goodness, he finds some really compelling evidence for the Kremlings' return and also for King K. Rool's return. So if you want to see all the findings and all the details that he pointed out, definitely go there. I'm just going to point out a couple just to, continue to tell you why I believe the Kremlings and King K. Rool are indeed returning. First off, he shows a snippet which seems to be from the website of the game that says who is Voidco and what do they really want. It kind of gives off the impression that they're not just here for the Banandium gems, that they're actually here for something bigger, and maybe they were hired from King K. Rool to dig for something, or to dig out the old army of the Kremlings from DKC2, or something along those lines. It's hard to say, but that's just a small bit of evidence. He shows even more evidence to believe that Ingot Isle is indeed related to Crocodile Isle, because at the very beginning of the game, when we're in Ingot Isle, you can see all these green brambles, which is pretty strange because, of course, the only game where we've seen green bramble like this is from Donkey Kong Country 2. We then see a scene in one of the sublevels where we're underneath the water, and as you know, Crocodile Isle actually sunk underneath the water at the end of the game. But there's something that I just completely glossed over and didn't even realize. Look at the beam coming out of Crocodile Isle at the very end of the game. Remember, we never really found out what this was supposed to be in the Lost World because there was never any reference or any talk about this in the actual game. All I know is I love that color scheme because it's my channel colors. Yeah, purple and blue just go so well together. Anyways, when you fight King K. Rool the second time for the bonus fight at the end of the game, you fight him in Crocodile Core. And I mentioned before, this area might have something to do with Donkey Kong Bananza. You can see all these statues of Kremlings in the background with these gold, armored plates and shields and swords. So maybe this is the skeletal remains of some of those crocodiles or something like that, or the ones that we killed in Donkey Kong Country 2. But back to that beam of light, what is that energy source? Well, maybe after so many years later, they'll finally explain it in Donkey Kong Bananza, because this color scheme is literally everywhere. And thanks to Uncle Al Plus, he points it out again to show how present it is within the artwork and just the game trailer itself. It's just blues and pinks everywhere. It even shows how it's on the rim lighting of Donkey Kong. You can still see that blue and pink everywhere. It's on some of the NPCs, bosses, and characters as well, with their eye color and just their body colors. Same colorways on giant stones that we've seen in the trailer, and on DK barrels on the arrows themselves. Not to mention the shockwaves that Donkey Kong can send out are the same colors as well. These colors are literally everywhere. This is such a good point, and I don't see how in the world this could be a coincidence. So it kind of excites me to see finally, after so many years later, what this beam actually was supposed to be, and what was King K. Rool at least originally planning. Maybe this is him going back and finishing his plans from Donkey Kong Country 2, almost being a spiritual successor as a 3D sequel to that game, which is crazy to even think about. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to callbacks that we've seen so far. For instance, we can see that there's some fossils of past enemies that you can actually pick up. Like this one is Naughty from the Donkey Kong Country series, which once again is being a direct callback to the DKC games. We even have a new conversation with Cranky Kong, thanks to Andres Restart on YouTube, who actually gave the full kind of gameplay clip of this because this was completely different than the Treehouse version, where it seems like maybe Cranky Kong is alluding to King K. Rool in some sort of way. And he states, when I heard there was a banana bandit on the loose, I knew who to blame, just had to suss out where he ran to hide. he's talking about one single person where he ran to hide. If he was talking about Void Code, he'd be talking about them, as they're a group of 3 different monkeys. So it seems like maybe King K. Rool is already in this and Cranky Kong's already seen him, or there's something going on with him stealing bananas in the first place, or at least Cranky Kong thinks it was because of K. Rool. It also says, what a rotten crook. How does a fool like that command any respect? So once again, I don't know if he's just talking about the leader of Void Co, or maybe referencing King K. Rool. And from this whole conversation, it really does feel like, you know, Cranky's at least alluding to him. And I do believe this is bigger than just a reference, because some of this info is just way too big just to be a nice little reference and nod back to Donkey Kong Country. Now, Donkey Kong Country 2 doesn't seem to be the only thing referenced here, because Donkey Kong Country 3 is referenced in a way as well. Someone on Twitter going by the name of Skips actually found out that there is a secret map shown within the gameplay. This map is shown when Donkey Kong picks up a new fossil, and if you look really closely at the map, and if you know your Donkey Kong Country lore, yep, that's the map for the Northern Hemisphere from Donkey Kong Country 3. So how in the world could this just be a reference? Like, why in the world are they referencing a map from Donkey Kong Country 3? It doesn't make any sense, and it has to tie in something with that fossil. So in my head, it's telling me that that fossil is something from that game. Similarly to how Donkey Kong picked up a fossil of Nati, maybe there's different fossils that act as kind of trophies from past Donkey Kong Country games based on different enemies, bosses, or characters that you killed from those past games as well. Maybe in a way acting as a museum of sorts. Now maybe there's more to this, maybe it's more than just collecting, maybe it actually ties into the story as well, which is something that got me thinking. Since we are underground, what if this game takes place underneath various areas from the past Donkey Kong games? Maybe some worlds or sub-levels are based on specific regions from past Donkey Kong Country titles. Maybe one whole area is based on Donkey Kong Country 1 but just underneath the ground there. I mean, we even see one area where it looks like Donkey Kong's above ground, so maybe you come out on some of these areas and you'll play through a classic 2D section that represents that game, meaning we could have a classic DKC2 section and a classic DKC3 section as well, maybe even one from Returns and Tropical Freeze. So these could work as cool throwback stages, so maybe there's some type of giant barrel that shoots us above ground just to do these little 2D stages real quick and then takes us back underground, not only being a cool little callback, but also showing us where we are in the world and giving us some cool world building that ties into the overall past games and the story of this game as well. In fact, Skips on Twitter had found even more images of more of these fossils, and it seems to have different parts of that Northern Hemisphere map as well. Thanks to these images, we can actually see the background and see that Donkey Kong is in that yellow grass area that we've seen in the treehouse, which shows him underneath the water. If you look at Donkey Kong Country 3's map, remember, Northern Hemisphere is filled with tons of green and yellow grass and lots of waterways as well, which would just make so much sense that that's where we're underneath right now. Thanks to that, it makes even more sense that maybe we are underneath past areas. Also, do you see this blue punching bag that Donkey Kong's hitting in this scene to raise the platform beside him? Look very closely. Yeah, there seems to be blue paw prints patterned all over this thing, and not just any paw prints, but that of a bear. What creature from any Donkey Kong game ever could fit this description? Well, the bears from, once again, Donkey Kong Country 3. And like I said, these bears appeared in this game only. There was a bunch of them with different personalities and looks to them and different types of bears, but they pretty much just worked as NPCs throughout the game, where you would go on trading quests in order to get coins from them and to progress for the 100%, and also to get little side items, and they would also help you to progress further in specific worlds by allowing you to go on a trolley and get higher up on a mountain or something like that. Just pretty much nice, friendly NPC bears that you came across in the game, and they're little huts. So what if we actually got the bears coming back as a cameo, or maybe the long lost descendants of the bears down here underneath the ground? Now, something else Donkey Kong Bananza has been hiding is an alphabet in secret banana language. Now this is very similar to Kirby and the Forgotten Land, where eventually someone found out a way to decode that language and we could read all the signs and stuff nearby, which never really told us anything super interesting. Too Crispy on YouTube has made a really good video decoding most of the letters. Once again, that link is in the description down below. Please check out his video. It's very well done and definitely needs to be seen, because he actually goes through and shows what a lot of the signs and in-game language says, and I'm not going to go over everything here, but it's just something that's really cool that he's been figuring out and still working on figuring out the rest of those letters. But I took some of those letters, and with the new image of this weird new slate we got, I actually was able to add 2 more letters to this alphabet, where it reads something thanks for reading. Now at first I thought it'd say thank you for reading, but it didn't really match up with the other letters. But I don't know, I'll leave that to you guys. Maybe of you can decipher exactly what this says, but it doesn't seem to be anything too important. I do want to end this video with one more theory of my own, going back to that whole we're revisiting past worlds underground thing, like we've seen so far with Donkey Kong Country 3 and 2. I want to go to this boss, because this boss looks very familiar to me, and after really looking at this and looking at all the other evidence, I do believe this could be a boss that we fought before. Now, I know this might be a long shot, but do you remember Clubba? He was this giant crocodile with a giant club in his hand, and he would jump around the stage trying to swing his club and hit you, and also drop TNT barrels on top of you to explode as well. Of course, this boss was way bigger than Clubba ever was, but it's a giant crocodile themed boss. You can see the skeletal remains underneath, and he's swinging a giant crocodile themed club, and you can even see the base of the club that's all made out of skeletal gold remains as well as he's holding it. Now, the area that you're fighting him in doesn't remind me of the swampy area that you fought him in Donkey Kong Country 2, but I just thought I'd bring it up because there's a lot of similarities here, and it makes me think that maybe there could be some callback to him, and maybe he's just a lot bigger this time in skeletal form. Like, what if all the bosses were skeletal versions of all the past bosses you fought in the Donkey Kong Country series, or at least some of them that made a return? But it's just a theory. A Donkey Kong theory. Let me know down below what you think about all this information, and do you agree with my theories and other people's theories as well? Definitely let me know down below, or even let me know if you have your own theories about this stuff as well. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Donkey Kong Bonanza and Nintendo in general, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.